if I remember how to do this show. Welcome to the Sigma Show, episode 127. I am your host, Sigma. As always, see, I just messed it up. That is not what I say at that moment. Before I let you know who is joining me this week, real quick, we'll go over what our topics will be. And honestly, even though it's been a while, it's been about 4 weeks, I want to say. Like, we had the holidays, and then we had some second win events or whatever that I was participating in. So it was a fairly long hiatus since the last Sigma show, but we are back now. But that being said, there's not a lot of news. So really, we'll be just catching up on like games, TV shows, whatever we've been like occupying that time with, which is always a fun conversation. And the only real bit of news really was the Xbox Developer Direct earlier this week, which we'll break down, talk about our thoughts on like kind of what the games presented kind of look like for Xbox, and just I guess the Direct overall. But here, joining me to talk about these topics is Rachel Kaiser.
Hi everyone, I'm back.
Yes.
I never left. Like people in the chat are like, "Hey, you're back," and I'm like, "I didn't go anywhere."
Yeah, we've all
the show
been
that
here.
left, not me.
Like Rachel's been sitting in that chair for 4 weeks straight.
4 weeks waiting for the call from Casey to be like, "Rachel, you want to be on camera again?" Yes, please. I haven't taken my makeup off once.
Also joining us, Marty Sleva.
Dilly dally shilly shally.
Yes,
What's that?
wise
That's
words.
Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, the film.
Wait, that's in that movie?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I think it's supposed to mean something else. It's like Tifa trying to tell Cloud, like, get your shit together and like don't worry about certain things.
Like
and she
Hakuna
says
Matata.
dilly dally shilly shally, and it just doesn't make any sense.
They tried. It's okay.
Yeah.
We'll give them that one.
Yeah.
But welcome all to another episode of the Sigma Show. As we tend to do, we like to start with what we've been playing, and like I mentioned earlier, that's probably going to be the bulk of this this episode. There are some interesting things that I want to get into in terms of the Xbox Direct, but I'm sure we'll have just enough time towards the end, right? There's only 3 people today. On that note, anybody want to go first? I'm looking at you, Marty, because I know Rachel may need to step away for like.
Sure. Well, I wanted to talk about something I haven't been playing, but we need to talk about Power World.
Yeah, okay. I have been playing Power World.
We need to talk about Power World. As of this morning, Power World, which for folks who don't know is it is the game that was dubbed Pokemon with Guns, but is just a sort of melting pot of a crafting simulator with open world Breath of the Wildy things, also with farming, also with Pokemon that may or may not be stolen assets from Game Freak. Came out on Friday, has sold 4 million copies.
That number
has
keeps
sold
going up.
4 million copies.
Like,
that is not
every time I hear a headline,
that
that number goes up. Like I just saw this morning, 3 million.
That is, it is 4 million in 3 days, and that is not including Game Pass. And it is now currently has the most concurrent players in Steam history of any game ever.
God damn.
What is happening? Why is this happening? I understand why this is happening.
Yeah, I know
exactly
why this is happening. Like, for one, I am playing Power World. Like, I am not. You guys who have been listening to this show or listening to me elsewhere.
I'm talking about Power World.
Who have been listening to the show, listening to me elsewhere, know I am not a fan of Nintendo's Pokemon series or other derivative Pokemon series because they kind of copy that same, to me, boring formula. And Power World is the first game that I've come across that is at the very least taking it and just putting something else. Like Monster Sanctuary, which I mentioned on the last Firelink, I think, as an alternative, was one that I did like a little bit because it was doing the same thing. It was like, hey, this is a creature collector, but it's kind of in another genre. And like, it's not a lot going on in that genre, but it's still refreshing to have this and that mixed together. Power World is like a really basic ass survival crafting game, right? Like you just level up your character, you go down the chain of building things that you need, which then need to be fed into another thing so that you continuously grow the productivity of like your encampment or whatever. But just the addition of, all right, I need to go find a pal or like a Pokemon type creature in order to help this portion of that system completely invigorates it with energy.
Yeah.
I was playing I want to say like for 2-3 hours with 2 of my friends last night. The game is janky as all hell because it is still in early access. But we were having a blast, just running around, like laughing at each other, like doing dumb stuff. Like one of my friends was just going on a rampage anytime, like because he was trying to power level, right? He was like, "Well, I just want to get to all of this technology, so I'm just gonna take this one strong pal that I have with me and just murder everything in sight on like just he'll just travel across the countryside, just murdering pals left and right." While me and my other friend were trying to catch everything we could. It was like, oh, this is a cool looking thing. This is a cool looking thing. They'll fight each other out in the world or whatever. None of it is like revolutionary, but it feels like what Pokemon could be doing or could have been doing this whole time and just haven't. And that I think is what is galvanizing everyone, including me, because like I've wanted to be a Pokemon fan, and the game itself has just not allowed me to be.
There's
Focus.
so much. So this is one of those games where I have zero interest in playing it, like negative interest in playing it. However, I'm fascinated by it because Lampy and Tyrell are bringing up another thing that, Lampy and King Dad, that I read this morning. That are you playing on Game Pass?
I am playing on Game Pass, yes.
Apparently, that is a 3 to 6 month older build than what is available at purchase.
I believe it. I believe it. Because it is a very janky, broken ass game. Like the first time I was playing it, it crashed on me like 3-4 times, and I had to stop because like I was in a real janky fight at the moment too. Like I was trying to capture a much higher level pal. It was like stuck behind some geometry. I was peppering it with arrows, and like I threw out like my Firefox thing to like we were just cheesing it hard body, and I was excited because I'm like, yes, I'm gonna get this way too powerful for me pal under my control, and then the game crashed. I was like, all right, I'll put this down for now. But I went back with my friends. Like the character you make in a solo world, because essentially you just build like a server.
Mm-hmm.
That character is locked to that server, as far as I can tell. At least on the Game Pass version. Like I've not touched the Steam one, so I don't know. So when we tried to play together, like we showed up in my friend's world and we had to make new characters, and we were like, we were like, all right. So we decided we'll build a server that's just for us. Like, so I started it, and then I invited them. So we all started from zero, and then we started working in that server. And when they leave, their stuff remains in there, but it doesn't seem as though, like, it's not independent of like me as the host. So I don't think they can just go back to it unless I'm actually playing a game. So we do have to be like, all right, we're all going back to the world.
Yeah, you can't just separately do single player things inside the server and then on the weekends come together.
Which sucks. But as janky as all of that was, and it was frustrating, like we were still having a good ass time. So like I hope that they're gonna take all this money and like kind of convert this into a working version of what it is, because it's kind of really janky. But I don't know. I'm having fun with it.
Rachel, have you jumped in? Oh, do you still have to?
No. One of my cats is just being very destructive right now. Honey, did you knock yourself?
They're called
silly?
pals, not cats.
You know what? Speaking of animals that are just oh my god. Oh the zoomies.
Animals you shouldn't hand a gun to.
Yes, basically, yeah.
Have you played it out?
I haven't played it. I've been meaning to, but I've been occupied with other games at the moment. Stuff I have review codes for that I cannot yet disclose. But yeah, I've been watching YouTube videos of other people playing it, and there's a part of me that thinks, there's no way this would ever get big if it weren't for Pokemon, if it weren't being for what it is. But that's how satire works. So it wouldn't exist if it weren't for the thing that it is satirizing. And I may need to go get my cat here in a minute, because anybody get a pal sphere, because I may need to go get my cat because she is currently on a rampage across this apartment.
Go, you can go. Don't let your cat destroy your house just for us.
Yeah, go.
I mean, it's more a matter of like it's more a matter of I don't exactly know what to do to stop her, because my other cat's already chilling in the bedroom and she's not allowed in there because she makes a mess. So, but Marty, out of curiosity, what have you been playing?
Yeah, well, I mean, my last little power thing is, do we think this is gonna have legs? Like, it is way more popular at launch than I ever thought it would.
Yeah, that's very surprising.
But is this a fucking goof game? Is this a goof game that a week from now, 2 weeks from now, everyone's gonna be like, remember when everyone played Power World that one weekend? That was weird. Like, this isn't gonna like last. It also came out during Prince of Persia side, which we'll talk about. Because it's the beginning of the year. It's relatively slow. Once you get into the cadence of, we got Like a Dragon, we got Persona, we got Suicide Squad, we got Final Fantasy. Is that going to get divvied up a little bit? And Pal World is not going to be having a million concurrents.
Yeah, it's definitely a novelty. at the outset, right? But like that sort of flash in the pan sort of thing is exactly what a company needs to like capitalize on.
Sure.
Because like, yeah, it definitely probably won't stay at this level, but a bunch of people are probably going to be sticking with it after the fact. So like maybe even if those numbers were to like shrink by half, they still be doing way
It was
better.
probably one of the most popular games in
Yeah.
the world. Yeah.
So like if they actually care about this project, if they care about money even, which I'm sure they do, they may want to, you know, reinvest a little bit of resources and make it a thing that's more stable so that those folks can keep playing. Because eventually what happens is they throw microtransactions in it. Like there aren't any that I'm aware of at the moment, but like that's clearly the next logical step for like a big sort of live game success story like this, right? So I see it.
Yeah.
I see it having legs, honestly.
And I think
one.
I come at it with my own bias of I don't play these kinds of games, so like I'm just like no one would. I don't find this interesting, so no one should find this interesting. So maybe that's where my skepticism comes from.
Sure.
But yeah,
Not
I
a
mean,
squirmy one.
yeah, it's 4 million in a weekend, 4 million copies sold while it's available on Game Pass is I mean it's incredibly impressive. It is that is like rarefied atmosphere in terms of numbers. Like a lot of times these indie games that blow up need a little bit of time. Like Lethal Company needed a little bit of time in order to blow up. Stuff like Valheim, stuff like Terraria, but it doing this at launch is really impressive.
I mean, it's part of it's got to be shock factor, right?
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah, and the
absolutely.
goofs and the memes and it's Pokemon with guns, even though it's like Arc with some Pokemons, kind of like right. It's like
Yeah,
it's
you
kind of
even
like
say the word arc, and I'm like super disinterested in
yeah,
anything that has to do
yeah,
with that. But like for Power World, it's like I will try it because there's
yeah,
like cute creatures to catch.
sure, yeah. Are are you guys going to stick with it? Like, do you think you're going to be
For now,
playing this
yeah. Like for now, we're all
next
kind of
weekend?
smitten with
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like it's
cool.
not like it is janky. Like that's the thing. Like, but it's like it's the promise of what it could be that I think we're all really excited about.
hmm
So
Yeah.
like its success is like giving me hope that they'll actually be able to turn it into that, as opposed to it just kind of floundering.
Yeah, and I know one of the worries is like their previous game, Craftopia, I believe it's called, is was an early access game that they kind of abandoned for this,
Hmm.
and so people are like, well, if you did that there, like, are you gonna when you get bored of this, are you just gonna stop making stuff for it? Like, what's you
It's
know?
a reasonable assumption, but like
Mhm.
I'm like Craftopia. What level of success did that have? If like, because I'd not heard of it
Know
before
about it.
this.
Yeah, and that one looked exactly like Breath of the Wild. Like,
this
vision of
one
that
this
game,
one
I'm just
isn't
like,
too dissimilar from Breath of the Wild
no,
either. Like
yeah,
there's like weird musical pings and chimes that sound
yeah.
just like Zelda stuff.
You take your glider to towers in the
Yeah,
distance, and
exactly.
yeah.
Like
Are
they
you
have not
telling me
abandoned that.
they've ripped off some things? How dare? How
I don't.
dare?
This game, I think there is a almost 0% chance this game actually faces any litigation. I don't think this. I think this is more of just like we're just gonna make a game that's just gonna crib from a bunch of ideas, as opposed to we literally stole the assets. Because
Yeah,
I
and
don't
because
know.
they wouldn't even be the first, right? Like a bunch of games have introduced gliders as a mode of traversal. Like, a bunch of games have the climbing and the like that's it's the same wave of like post Souls game
Mhm.
design, right? Like this neatly fits into that, but this is
Yeah,
fusing that with Pokemon sensibilities. And like that's literally what I don't want to say fans, because fans are very much happy with what Nintendo is giving them, but it's what critics of the Pokemon franchise have been asking for. It's like, hey, do something new with this. Like, make this more expansive. Like, where is the Breath of the Wild equivalent of the next Pokemon game? Weirdly enough, Power World is closest to it. An even more interesting idea is that if Nintendo pays any attention to this at all, maybe they will understand finally, yes, maybe we should take a risk with our Pokemon franchise. Because if Nintendo were to do this, like actually put effort and energy into building out like a big open world thing on its own engine, Breath of the Wild style, but all the Pokemon that you actually know and love, you know that's killing this. Like this is
yeah,
immediately
That was
sending this to its
almost
deathbed.
what Arceus was, I think.
Yeah, but they like they had no confidence in it. Like they
No. You're right. You're right. They did something different, and
mhm.
but they didn't put it in the mainline series.
Yeah, like they took so many risk averse decisions in the crafting of that. They're like, well, we'll give them about an inch and see how that gets them. And it's like, you were already moving in the opposite direction. Like, you can't give us an inch now and think that that's enough. Like, they need a radical change. And I'm curious what made them decide to do that with Zelda, because Breath of the Wild was kind of a big departure from the last couple that they had been making. So I'm wondering, like, what was the shot in the arm for that? Like, was it sales? Was it spearheaded by like a big lead, like Aonuma or something? I don't know. I'm wondering how those decisions get made.
It's Monday morning in Japan right now.
Mm-hmm.
What are Ishihara, the president of the Pokemon Company, and Furukawa, the president of Nintendo? Do they got emergency meetings this morning about Pal World? Do you think they're even talking about Pal World
They
today?
have to be, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like, it's on their radar, but I don't think there's a whole lot of concern about it.
Yeah, I don't think they're like worried, like, oh no, this is coming for us. But like, they have to be like, people really like what they're doing in the same sort of field we're in. Like, is this something we want to try?
I think when we talk about like there needs to be a Breath of the Wild for Pokemon, I don't think they want to go in the direction of human trafficking.
Of course not. No.
I think they saw how like questionable the world maybe is, how dubious the world, which isn't to say it's bad, just that it's it's a different form of play, and that's not happening under Nintendo's banner ever, I don't think. So there's probably, to a sense of just like, well, we're not doing that, so there's nothing that we can take away from this. That's my fear, is that they're not going to take anything from it.
Like, yeah, that they're looking at it on surface level, which because I get that. Like those shocking headlines or whatever are the things that are bringing attention to it, but that stuff is not at all what is interesting about Pal World. Like, I've not gotten to any of that yet in the game. Like, I've not been able to craft any sort of firearm yet. Like, I still have like primitive weapons like spears and bows and arrows. But the loop of needing to capture and wrangle creatures to help with your like farming management stuff, like, that is really fun by itself. And that alone is all Nintendo really needs to take. Like, make a big adventure where the collecting of Pokemon has an effect on the gameplay loop that you're also driving behind the scenes. It doesn't have to be a farming sim, for example. It could be some sort of like combat loop maybe, but just do more than what they have been doing is all I'm asking.
Well, I think part of it has got to be that, I believe there had to have been talks about, like, do we want to have a gameplay loop for Pokemon other than just capture, battle, or capture, battle, evolve, I guess as the case may be. But the problem is, I think it all comes down to the games where that is the gameplay loop have traditionally sold really well. And I think it's only been in like the last generation that things have really started to, drop off.
I don't think so. The critical reception's dropped off, but sales-wise, Scarlet and Violet, like, they've sold 100 million Pokemon games on Switch. Like, they're...
Is it all Scarlet and Violet, or is it some of it Sword and Shield as well?
Some of it's Sword and Shield, but like Scarlet and Violet, I think sold wonderfully for them. It's just like more and more people are calling them out on their bullshit, whether or not they care. That's one thing, because Nintendo and the Pokemon Company have notoriously kind of not given a shit when people have come to them.
That's my point. Is just that it becomes harder to harder to justify breaking the status quo when the status quo makes you bank.
Yeah.
Sure, that's, I mean, like, what is it going to take for like Marvel, the MCU, to rethink their kind of structure and quality pipeline? Is it's going to be several movies in a row and several TV shows in a row completely bombing, like we're currently seeing? Whether or not they actually act on that and actually like change course is remains to be seen. But similar thing if you talk about Star Wars, and like they took a break from Star Wars movies because the movies started making less money and critical reception was bad. So they're like, we need to rethink what's going on.
Lampy in the chat throwing out some stats. Scarlet and Violet sold 10 million in 3 days, and 23.23 million in the first year. So yeah, they're still selling well, and I'm a little salty about that because, like, consumers, what are you doing?
Like, I buy it to know it's not good.
I bought Sword and Shield and found out, this is not good. I was excited by the idea that they were trying something new, and then learned that they weren't. And so the stuff that they did actually try new after the fact, I fully ignored because I'm like, I'm not getting burned again. And I'm glad I did because I don't think Arceus would have been what I was looking for from them.
Listen, don't blame me.
Probably not.
I buy one copy of games. You can't blame me. Jermaine bought 2 copies. Blame him. It's not my fault. He bought 2 copies.
I liked Arceus, but I liked it for all the things that it was. That it was basically baby's first Monster Hunter, and so I liked it for all the things it was that Pokemon traditionally is not.
Mm.
Yeah, I liked the idea of the loop behind Arceus, and then I just wish it was in a more visually compelling and a mechanically interesting world.
Yeah, like
Focus camp.
either any way you look at this, like whether Pal World is just a flash in the pan and it's like it's gonna fade into obscurity. The idea of it, I think, even if Nintendo is like, we don't need to care about this, we're fine on our own, somebody else will. Someone else will see that success and be like, this is where the money's at, or that's an idea that I hadn't considered before, and probably do an earnest attempt at this. Like, you combine that creature collecting aspect with almost any other game loop and see how it goes, right? Like, you mentioned Monster Hunter. Like, what if you could catch those monsters but then fight them in real time like the way you do? What if you controlled the Pokemon that you threw out so that you could fight them in the middle of these sort of Pokemon-esque battles? Like, there's so much you could try that no one has tried, because every single time someone makes one of these, they just copy Nintendo like 100%, and it's like, this is another very boring one of these.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most drastic departure I think I've seen for a creature collector. And some of it is real stupid. Some of it is morally reprehensible in like a very childish way. But at the very least, it's different. And like, there's value in that, I think. I think that even if it's not Nintendo, that will probably spark something in someone somewhere. At least I hope so.
Can we talk about a game I like more?
Yeah, go right ahead. This was your what you've been playing.
Can we talk about Prince of Persia?
Yes,
so good. It's so good. See, another game doesn't really bring any new ideas to the table. And I'm perfectly fine with that, because it takes all the good ideas from all the games I love. It has a very incredible level of polish to it, both in terms of its visuals, in terms of its combat, in terms of its traversal, in terms of its puzzles, in terms of the little things like the pulling up your map and being able to take a picture to remind yourself of an obstacle you want to come back to. And it puts all those things into a package that is just so fucking fun to play, whether you're a fan of more traditional Metroidvanias like Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night, or whether you're more into the sort of modern like, I don't know how to differentiate like the older mode of Metroidvania to like the post Hollow Knight mold, like where the Hollow Knight is like I don't want to say combat centric, because like Symphony of the Night has a shit ton of combat, but like those sort of like one-on-one duels that you get a lot in Hollow Knight.
Yeah, like maybe boss centric.
Maybe boss centric, yeah, but yeah, whatever it is, it's just really good. And I just cracked the 10-hour mark, and my thing says I'm 50% through. I don't know if that's like total completion or the actual campaign and whatnot. But yeah, I've been really, really liking it. I know a lot of people will always be like, "Oh, Ubisoft fatigue. I don't want to support them." And if they're like, "I don't want to support them until they make something original," this is that thing. Support games like this. If you want this is how you take a franchise that hasn't really hit in several console generations and inject new life into it. And it also helps that it was paired with Ubisoft Montpellier, who's like one of the most renowned studios they have, between Beyond Good and Evil and Peter Jackson's King Kong and the Rayman games. I always go to bed.
Yeah, everyone's favorite, King Kong.
Yeah, it's good. It was the best launch game for the 360. Sorry, Perfect Dark Zero.
No, that game
really
was bad. So
it was really bad.
Don't be sorry.
Here's some lines on the ground for where you need to go. But yeah, I've been absolutely loving it. It plays great on Switch. It like runs at 60 on Switch, and apparently it runs at 120 on the other consoles, which is too many frames. You don't need that many.
Yeah,
frames.
I don't think I need that many frames.
Share the frames with a friend. Rachel, have you been playing it at all?
Yes, that was actually what I was probably the lion's share of what I was going to talk about in my what you've been playing section. So
Okay.
If you want to finish what you were doing for.
No, go. Let's just
go ahead. You
about
can
Prince of Persia.
just
Okay.
get your Prince of Persia out.
Okay, so yeah, I've gotten to I think I'm at like half overall completion. So, because I've been doing a lot of this, I've been doing the side quests and exploring a whole lot. My the problem, I mean, I love platformers, but I mean, I swear my hand-eye coordination is going in my old age. Um, I think what stood out to me the most, I mean, I'm enjoying a lot of the like cultural aspects of the art design. Like, there's a lot of Zoroastrian art, which is like something which is like way older, like religious imagery in Persian and Iranian art. So I appreciate that that's represented so well here. And I'm hearing from a lot of people they're so excited that the game has been fully dubbed in Farsi. So the
Oh, that's
Prince of
cool.
Persia actually speaks Persian. And well, although I will point out that if you go back to Sands of Time, this is the first time in a while that a game has actually taken place in Persia. Because like Sands of Time takes place in, I think, India. Am I
Huh.
wrong? Or
I
Hindustan?
don't I don't remember actually.
Yeah, I haven't played Sands of Time since it first came out.
But yeah, I don't. I remember that game taking place actually not actually taking place in Persia, but I could be wrong. So I love the art design. I love the aesthetic. It took me a little while to warm to Sargon's character design. I do still think some of the character design is a little bit lacking. I appreciate that the main cast is like you can tell they're from different parts of the ancient world. Like Neith
Yeah.
is from Egypt, and yeah, I said your name. What you talking about? That's my cat's name also. Menelaus is from Greece, and I would say probably Orod. I'm gonna guess somewhere from the Near East, probably Turkey. But yeah, that's one of the things I also enjoyed. I enjoy the like I said, it took me a little bit to warm up to Sargon's character design because I was like, what's with that? The sort of like a little modern, a little bit, I would say, character design. But after a while, I started to just see him for what he is. I think he looks great. And I was also looking up some art design from some of the art design documents, and I can see like, oh yeah, they also took a lot of historical inspiration for his character design too.
Yeah, that argument about the modern design, like it honestly just doesn't hold any water, because that particular hairstyle, as overused as it is right now, you could make the same argument for like women's hair in like fantasy games and whatnot, or like it just is so much more clean and like Hollywood pressed than what it would be in that time
I was
period.
thinking more of like the jewelry and the clothing, but I mean
Well,
that
I mean, yeah,
also I
like
looked
it's
up and
a
there is historical precedent for that too.
yeah. I mean, it's like I don't see the big deal. Like they're not presenting it as like this
No,
is
it's not
like
a
a
big deal.
recreation.
It's
Right,
not.
right, right. Yeah. No,
It was more. It
I'm
was
not
more
saying
just that
you're
I was.
saying it's a big deal, but like I've seen like when that game was first announced, for example, there was a ton of pushback, and like working at Ubisoft, full disclosure, like I've seen email chains where like they're kind of quantifying how much pushback like people are outwardly stating about like just the look of the prints or whatever. And it was like this seems kind of outmatched for like similarly fantastical main characters, whatever. But whatever. Eventually, when the thing got in the hands of people, they just stopped caring, right? Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
the game is fun, and like that's kind of the real litmus test. I do wonder like a lot of the annoyance for a character like what's her name in Forspoken could have been offset by the game just being better.
Also, you pay attention to the exact details of how the character is designed in still images when you are not playing the game,
Mm,
and then when you're
Mhm.
playing the game, it is all about like how does that character subtly look when you're moving, like when you're not paying attention. And I think the character looks excellent in that way when you're kind of surveying the environment. And a lot of it, like I'm a sucker for like a character with a flowy garment behind them that like acts as
Mhm.
like a way to signal like momentum and speed and movement and everything. And that kind of belt
yeah,
scarf.
that
I'm sure there's an
sash.
actual name, sash.
Yeah,
That like kind of powder blue to it. I think is awesome. Like that's such a. It kind of reminds me of like the scarf in Journey, to where it like does such
I
a great job of like expressing your momentum.
I think that is actually like a trademark of like the main character in Prince of Persia games past. Like every main
Oh, is
character
it?
always
I
has
didn't know
some
that.
sort of kind of like wrapper. Like I
Like a
think
blue sash. Yeah.
yeah, like the blue sash was on like the Sands of Time one, and I think the head wrap might have acted like that in
Oh
the
eight.
yeah, like that kind of
Yeah.
watercolor remake one, if I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
correctly. So yeah, I thought that was a cute nod when they were like, "Hey, here's your sash." Like I was like, "Oh shit, the
Yeah.
sash!" I remember that.
Yeah. And Rachel, like you mentioned, the other what's like the name of the group of warriors he's a member of? Like I just keep calling
The
them Seven
Immortals.
Samurai, but the Immortals. I like how each of them
An actual
looks.
group in ancient Persia, by the way.
Shout out to the
Ah,
Immortals. They're getting some representation. Uh, they remind me of the dudes in Demon Slayer, like the Demon Slayer core, the Hashira. Is that what they're
the
called?
Hashira. Yeah,
How
yeah,
each one looks very different, and
Hmm.
like immediately you're like, oh, you have your own backstory. You're from a completely different place, and like Rachel was saying,
Yeah,
like
that's
you could
yeah,
trace that back to like
multicultural.
an actual cultural place.
yeah.
But I kind of like that when a team doesn't just feel homogenized, but is instead like a hodgepodge of different shapes and sizes and
Yeah,
backgrounds
like
and
they're
weapons
a
and everything.
band.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but very cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really digging it. Have you been playing
Yeah, I
much
think it
recently?
was yeah, I think it was oh, sorry, go ahead.
No,
No, go
no,
ahead.
go right ahead.
Yeah, I think it was more just that when I first started playing, I think it was actually more just that I found Sargon kind of boring compared to the other immortals. Like
Hmm.
especially like if you see a character like Neith who has these beautiful like thick red braids that go down her back and she just looks really badass, or Orod
She's
with
like
this
tall as shit
giant
too.
two-handled. Yeah, she is. She's enormous. With this giant two-handed anchor that he uses to
That's a
bludgeon
cool ass
people with.
weapon. Yeah,
It really did. I mean, it really does feel like he's sort of like scaled down design wise. Like maybe they like made him more elaborate at first, and then they sort of like you know
Hmm.
wheeled it. What's the term? Like pared it back a little bit. That's what it felt like. Almost like his design was a little restrained compared with the rest. But I'm not going to spoil anything. But I've gotten to certain things in the game that I think sort of explain why the other characters are so ostentatiously designed compared with Sargon. It is also the fact that Sargon has to be on screen a whole lot. So,
sure.
anything about his design that is too over the top, it's just going to get old really
Yeah,
quickly.
there. I guess there needs to be a balance for your main character.
True, true.
Otherwise, they look a little too distracting.
Yeah.
Wanted Dead springs to mind, which is a game I'm
Ah,
gonna gonna be replaying because the main character in that game is wildly over designed, and it's very hilarious. So I get it. Yeah, like it makes sense for him to be a bit more neutral to like the world around him sort of take center stage, especially if you're going to be navigating a map for the majority of your time there.
Yeah. And like I said, the main thing to me that sort of drew my attention is like the environmental art design and the shouts to real world religions from the Middle East, especially Zoroastrianism, and the design of the Simurgh is really cool, as well as the sort of almost psychedelic blue and purple background character that you only see in like the game over screens so far. Anyway, like I said, I'm not finished with the game. I'm only like halfway through.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that's more what kind of like has grabbed me about the game. Everything, like Marty said, everything else is really well designed and it's excellent, and I'm enjoying that everything that you obtain in the game has a purpose. Like there's nothing that I get in the game that I'm like, this has no, like, I'm never going to use this again. No, I'm
Yeah.
actually using everything that I pick up, which is speaks well of the art design in my opinion. But like I said, it was more just the art design of the game that sort of grabbed me right away.
last night I got to a kind of challenge that was the first time I'd seen it in the game where you enter a room and you sort of like hit a switch and you have 3 tries to accomplish a goal,
Yes.
and it is usually you need to get to a switch, pull the switch which opens a gate, and then go through the gate to get the thing. And each try lasts 10 seconds, and there's like a timer that goes down. But
Hmm.
the shadows of your tries and what they do in the world maintain throughout the tries. So you need to, like, say, for your first try, make it as far as you can in the maze, and then right before it stops, there's an ability to where you can kind of like lay a shadow version of yourself down, and then
Hmm.
wherever you are, if you tap a button, you transport back to that shadow version.
Hmm.
So you make it as far as you can on your first try and lay a shadow version down. Second try starts, you warp to that shadow version, and then you hit this jump and pull down the switch. And then on your third try, you wait until that second try pulls down the switch, which opens the door and gets through. And so that's like a very basic one, but they start getting more and more complex. Where there was one I spent like probably like 40 minutes on trying to like mentally be like, all right, I need one of my versions to step on a switch to open a thing, but it needs to get off the switch at a certain time because the second version needs to get through the gate, but the third version needs to get through when the gate is closed.
That's
And it was
awesome.
just really, really smart kind of pocket puzzle designs that I really appreciated.
Yeah, that's awesome. I haven't gotten to any of the complicated stuff yet. Like, but like everything I've seen suggests that it uses like all the parts of your brain for like different sections, like the platforming and the combat. Also make use of like all the buttons on the controller. Like there's a bunch of abilities that Sargon has access to, and like in good Metroidvania fashion, they are multi-purpose. Like they help you with traversal, they help you with combat, help you with puzzle solving, things like that. And so just having different contexts for a variety of moves just makes the game feel infinite and like its playability. Like there's just so much that you can do and so much that you can discover, whatever. And that's just a good ass video game. Like I had mentioned to Marty in one of our Slack channels a little bit how it had me thinking about like how just the base design of like the Metroidvania in general is like such a perfect video game blueprint. It's like you could put like any sort of setting, any sort of character in like a Metroidvania blueprint and like build out a world and mechanics around that would make sense. And like, are there other things that feel that like platformers feel a little too basic to say like, well, that's a perfect blueprint, but they kind of are. Like, hey, make an obstacle course and have a character who feels good to jump through it, right? Like that's perfect blueprint for a video game. But like Metroidvania also includes that. Like it includes almost you can take anything from any other genre and kind of stuff it in a Metroidvania, whether it's
Or like
a
any
2D one.
property.
Yeah,
Like
right.
if someone was like, they're making a Star Wars Metroidvania or any superhero, you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that tracks, right?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it might just be the perfect game genre.
It's probably my favorite, honestly. Like it scratches all the right itches.
So yeah, if you don't know what to do with your game franchise, try Metroidvania, but put some heart into it. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, Prince of Persia, it's going back to the roots, kind of.
True. That is true.
So you either introduce
But-
guns and crafting or Metroidvania elements.
I
One or
mean,
the other.
I will not to get ahead of myself, but I will say they do mention in one of the games of the Xbox Developer Direct that that one of the big changes they're making to the genre is introducing crafting. So you're probably right, Marty.
I don't like it.
Um,
I don't like it.
I wanted to
There's
say,
a place for crafting in the world, just not at Marty's
the-
place.
No.
no.
Not my home.
The other thing I wanted to say is that I'm hoping that the attention that the Lost Crown gets means that we can finally get some momentum on the remake of Sands of Time. Not that I'm hurting for it, but I hate when games are stuck in development hell. Because I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty clear Ubisoft's not going to abandon it, but it is stuck. So I'm hoping it gets unstuck. It's
Yeah,
like
I mean,
if this means we get more Prince of Persia games, then I'm fine with it.
yeah, as far as I know, and this has been publicly stated, it's like I'm not breaking an NDA or anything. Like that is still in progress. Like, but that's
It is.
pretty.
That's
Yeah,
what I've heard.
Yeah, that's pretty much all that is
Yeah,
known.
like the vibe I got from it was originally it was going to be a pretty like low bar HD remaster kind of thing, and then I think I don't know whether it was internal testing or feedback or whatever that they were like, oh, this is like one of our most cherished games we've ever made. We need to kind of do this justice, and it seems like it may have outscoped what that original thing is, and so maybe that's why it's kind of gone back. Is
Yeah.
maybe when we see it next time, it's gonna be like, oh, this looks like a modern game and not just like a slightly
Yeah,
up-res.
probably in the shadow of like all the Resident Evil remakes. It went like, all right,
Yeah,
if we're gonna
yeah.
do a remake,
Yeah.
like the bar for remake has been moved. So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
We kind of can't do this kind of thing anymore. It's probably
Yeah, yeah, the Resident Evil game, that's a perfect example. And even like Dead Space last year. And,
Same.
and
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
yeah, that's why when we
mean,
talk about like what Konami's doing with Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid, it's like, well, you have big shoes to fill after like we've
yeah.
kind of moved the bar for what we think a remake should be.
I mean, the fact that they're bringing back, like they're redoing all of the cutscenes at the very least because they have footage of all the mocap happening behind the scenes. So clearly they were going to put some work into it.
Yeah.
But I think you're right that they realized they cannot half-ass this.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, generally speaking, yeah. Go ahead, put your foot in it this time.
Yeah, exactly.
she's finally asleep. I think she wore herself out.
We did it. We did
Nice.
it. Our long natural nightmare's over.
Okay. We were still on Marty, I think, right? Like, were there
Oh.
like
Yeah.
shows and stuff that you're watching, or other games? That you're playing?
Well, the other game, I'm only about 2 hours into it, but I've been playing Another Code Recollection. I think it's a little play on both those words. That is the Switch game that just came out. It's Nintendo published, a remake of a DS game, and its Wii sequel that never came to the States. It was called Trace Memory in the US, and then Another Code everywhere else. And it was an adventure game. It was kind of like a Professor Layton's crossed with not Professor Layton, Phoenix Wright crossed with kind of more traditional point and click adventure, about like a girl who thinks her dad has been dead her whole life, but then finds out he's alive and he's on this island, and so she goes to the island to try to figure out like what the hell's going on there. Meets a ghost, and then has to like solve the mystery of what the hell's going on in this island. It's, to me, it's kind of the perfect game when we're talking about games to remake, because it's this game that was like really interesting, had a bunch of potential, and was like relatively well received when it came out, but then kind of just vanished into obscurity, like never got remasters or anything. It was on the DS, so it wasn't a thing that could like continue forward.
Like, this was like OG DS.
Oh yeah, this was, I think the game came out in like 2004, 2005.
Okay.
And so I think it's really cool that they went back to this and playing it now. It's like a really well written, really stylish, kind of basic in terms of puzzle solving so far, but like feels like a really cool like first step into the adventure game genre that I don't think Nintendo did a whole lot in terms of like putting muscle behind it, because they're afraid of Palworld.
During that time period in particular, like adventure games were they were even more niche than they feel now.
Yeah. The DS had a weird amount of them. Like you had your Professor Layton's, your Phoenix Wrights, your Hotel Dusk, which was that game you played like with your DS as
right,
a book,
like as a book, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and the DS game had like really interesting elements, like that felt kind of gimmicky but kind of cool. Like you found like a gravestone that was covered in dirt, and you had to blow on the DS screen to blow the dirt away. There was a scene where you had to like make an imprint of a thing, and you had to close your DS to sort of like stamp down the imprint and then open it. I'm curious some of those puzzles, how they're going to translate to the Switch.
They probably just won't.
They probably just won't.
They like blow on your Switch. Well,
blow on your Switch. Blow on your 3, 2, 1.
Is there a mic on that thing?
Is there a mic on the Switch? That's a great idea.
Yeah, like was there?
Question. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't actually know.
Yeah.
Where's my Switch? Hold on. I'm gonna inspect it and find out.
They put a mic in random places. There's a mic on the PlayStation controller.
That's right. Yeah.
It's Bayonetta.
I know her. She's a friend from work. But yeah, I've been playing that, really digging that. And then the only movie that matters to talk about is I saw the film Night Swim in theaters. Are you familiar with Night Swim?
No.
It is a movie about a haunted pool. And Wyatt Russell plays a former baseball player for the Milwaukee Brewers. Shout out to Milwaukee, who is diagnosed with MS and can no longer play baseball. And so him and his family move into this house, and they're like, we should move into a house with a pool, because there's some forms of therapy you could do in the pool. So they move into this house, and Wyatt Russell is like, man, this pool is kind of like giving me like energy back. Like he got a cut on his hand, he went in the pool, and the cut's healing up. He's going to his doctor, and they're like, your cells are curing this MS. However, the rest of the family is like, this pool is haunted by ghosts. This is not a good pool. We should not be in this pool. It is a very very bad January horror movie. Wow. My theater was rambunctious though. The title card came up that said 1992, and the theater cheered. And then later on, a title card said Minneapolis, and the theater booed. which was great. I was like, okay, so we enjoy 1992, but we do not like the Twin Cities at all.
Wow.
So it was great. Yeah, but like as a movie, it's like a 4 out of 10.
Okay. Honestly, the premise sold me a little bit. Like that sounds real freaking funny.
When you described that a little bit, I was like, Weird.
I love it because the dad's like, "Oh, the pool's great," and the rest of the family's like, "No, there's ghosts in it. It's terrible."
It was like I thought we were all on board with this MS is bad thing. Like, what's happening? When did
we
that
are.
change?
However, ghosts and dead children scare us. So maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Yeah, very cool.
But that's great.
It's like, look, just the water bothers me, nothing else.
We just take the water from the
I
night swim pool and move it somewhere else.
It's like I can handle ghosts. I don't give it.
Yeah,
Come at me, but the water terrifies me.
it's great. Haunted pool. Yeah.
Nice. Does that wrap things up for you?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Rachel, did you want to start sharing with us all of the things you've been experiencing over this little hiatus?
Sure. In terms of games, there's some stuff I'm playing that I can't talk about yet because the embargo for the reviews is not up yet. But I'm good on games. Games are great. I do want to play another Code Recollection at some point myself. But the Apollo Justice Ace Attorney trilogy is about to come out, so I'm flush with games. I got so many games.
Is that another
I did get to
remake, that trilogy?
Yes, yeah, it's a
Or
remake. You know,
remaster?
because we have the Phoenix Wright. Yeah, we've got the Phoenix Wright trilogy, but the three Apollo Justice games. What is with my camera not being able to focus today? I'm so sorry about that. So that's Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Dual Destinies, and Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice. And those games were only available on the DS and the Switch. Well, I think they were on iOS as well, but still harder to get a hold of. And you know, when they made the Ace Attorney trilogy, those are available. That's available anywhere. So I'm assuming that's what they're going to do with the Apollo Justice trilogy as well. So,
Was
but
Apollo
I'm looking
Justice
forward
a
to playing.
series that took place in like feudal Japan? Wasn't it one of those games that took place like in the past?
That's Great Ace Attorney Chronicles,
Fuck.
which
Too
they
many of those
released 2 years ago, I believe.
Oh my god.
But I do enjoy that one as well, just because, well, I don't want to get too much into the nitty gritty, but I love the prosecutor in the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Camera, come on, work with me here.
Jackson.
You know what? I'm just gonna have to be blurry. I can't deal with the camera right now. But yeah, I love the prosecutor in the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles because he's so he looks like he should be the most boring, but he's somehow the most flamboyant and over the top of all of them. And I love that very much. But so I'm waiting on that. But I did finish my first game of 2024. Every year, like clockwork, one of this very, very indie adventure game series called the Carol Reed series. It's developed by a single guy in Sweden, and the studio is called MDNA Games, and it's about as indie gets. Like, you can only get these games directly from the developer. Like, you can't buy them on any digital storefronts that I'm aware of. And every year, January 1st, like clockwork, he releases another game. And this year, it was a game called Dead Drop, where you basically follow this. The series is where you follow this British woman who lives in Sweden and who works as a PI, basically. So, and in this latest one, she is trying to help out a fellow who is in a spot of blackmail.
Oh, that's not good.
So,
Does he
I can
deserve it?
tell. Well, that's the twist, isn't it? But I will say, well, again, I don't think many people know about this series, so I'm having to do a lot of explaining here. But one of the interesting thing about it is that it is made. All the environments are made with real pictures of real places in Sweden. So you are technically exploring real locations in Sweden. And it's a very weird kind of very niche adventure, very particularly adventure game, point and click adventure game setup. But I enjoy it because everything is always really beautiful. And it also has this kind of eerie, surreal quality to it because it's like the uncanny valley effect, but for like environments. I'm rambling. But anyway, I can tell this time that the developer is really happy to no longer be confined by COVID because there's about 3 times as many locations to visit in this one as there ordinarily are in this series. So I can tell they went around taking a whole bunch of pictures of new
Right.
places for you to visit in the game and just stuffed them all in there. The
That sounds
money
cool.
is entirely on the screen.
This is
So-
this is not a goof question. Does that have anything to do with the director Carol Reed, like who
No,
directed
different.
like The Third Man? Okay, it's just
No,
called
totally
Carol Reed.
unrelated.
Okay.
Her name is just Carol Reed.
Okay, it's a her. This Carol
Yep.
Reed was a man. Men can be
I
named
know,
Carol too, Casey.
No, that's a whole thing in 30 Rock. Is that Liz's
Oh yeah, Carol.
yeah, Matt David is
David.
Carol, the
Pilot, right?
Yeah. That's weird that specific thing came up.
But yeah, well, it does make Google searches for Carol Reed a little bit more, makes it a little bit harder to find the Carol Reed games, because when you Google Carol Reed, you just get the director.
It's being like, this is my adventure game series, George Lucas. Not that George Lucas.
And then you get all in like, oh man, I need to rewatch The Third Man. That was a good movie. And then you completely forget. Then at some point, like you remember, oh right, I was looking up an adventure game. That's right.
We lost another one to The Third Man. Damn it.
But anyway, so that's the only other game I've been playing that I could talk about. Watching, I finally got around to finishing the first season of Spy Family.
Ooh.
So, because I need to get around, because I know the second season, I need to get around to it. There's a lot of things I need to get around to watching, and I have made it my mission to watch more things this year, so that I am not simply sitting on my phone scrolling on TikTok all day. So that I'm actually broadening my mind by watching silly animes. But this might be one of my favorite things I've ever watched in a while, just because it's all in on the premise. It's all about the comedy, and there's none of this. There's no angsty nonsense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Any occasion when there could be angsty nonsense is punctuated by Anya's commentary, or Yor freaking out and kicking something, or Lloyd not really being able to grasp the subtleties of social situations.
Yeah,
so there's no darkness or any of that whatsoever.
Right, and I was honestly surprised by that, because it felt like it'd been so long since like a super popular anime series was this sort of like sitcom-y. Because Lloyd is almost, it's like he's supposed to be like a standard sort of like shonen or seinen character, and Yor and Anya's inclusion in his mission are making it goofy. Like goofier than it should have been in the first place, and like it's really just really endearing.
Yeah, agreed.
It is, and I mean, I was trying to describe it to my aunt, who doesn't know anything about anime whatsoever, and I tell her about us. I give her the basic premise, and I say, like, for example, there's this scene where somebody has made Lloyd, and they're trying to beat him up in an alley, and he's trying to convince her that he's a doctor and these are his patients, and he's performing percussive therapy on them, and she's trying to disguise the fact that she's super strong and fast by telling him that she takes self-defense classes, and neither one of them are picking up on each other's lies. And it's just the best thing. And of course, Anya's just, in the background the entire time going, they're lying to each other, with that little smile on her face. I got so many, the last time I went to a convention in December, I found so many Anya stickers, like so much Anya merch, like all the time. Although I will say, I saw a lot of Spy Family cosplay, and it is weird to me that every time I see Yor cosplayed, it's in that black dress, which so far she's worn like maybe once in the entire series.
Sure, yeah.
It's like, come on, no, elite Yor cosplay. I need you to wear that big sweater with the leggings and the headband. Maybe, you know what? I'll do it. I have more leggings than I know what to do with. I just need a big red sweater.
I get it. Yeah, they're coveting the assassin look over the like the homemaker look, right?
I get it, but but it also it's more attractive, quote unquote, than that. Sure. But that's like, to me, it's like it's almost like when you see like Yor in that, like, her civilian clothes. It's like, that's the real woman there. That's why I understand that it's like we need to have the sexy dress for the cover art or whatever. But it's like you see Yor in her standard civilian gear, and it's like that's what she's really like. That the other one, that's her uniform, that's her job.
Like Street Fighter just had their crossover with the Spy Family franchise, and like they made this really big deal over like a fight between Yor and Chun-Li, which they even animated like a little vignette beforehand, and then when they finally revealed what the tie-in was, they did it with like a fight, like an avatar character wearing like the full spy like assassin look for Yor fighting like Chun-Li like in game. And people were very upset that it wasn't like a proper licensed like Yor skin or like Yor as a guest character. Like it's just an avatar costume.
Yeah.
I get it. Although, to be fair, isn't Chun-Li's at Interpol, right?
Yeah.
So technically, she would probably be facing off against Lloyd, not Yor. Because she and Lloyd are in the same field, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm getting.
checks out.
I don't know.
But
I'm
yeah.
a little bit. I'm feeling a little caffeinated this morning, so forgive me if I'm going deep cuts here.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. That's fine. I only bring it up because it kind of reminded me of the whole thing of like franchises kind of polluting the style of like different games they're in. And Street Fighter, even though they're like charted an arm and a leg for like their tie-ins, they're keeping it separate from like there's nothing you can put in the roster that doesn't belong. Like that stuff is
Sure.
just designed by the Street Fighter team, and I kind of respect that in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
But does that do it for you?
I think the
No, I'm sorry. go
well,
ahead.
I mean, just to contribute to your point,
Mhm.
it makes me because maybe it's because everything reminds me of Bayonetta, but it does remind me of when they were designing the Nintendo tie-in costumes for Bayonetta 2,
Mhm.
and they had the Bayonetta team like designing like Bayonetta styled costumes of like Peach and Zelda and Star Fox
Yeah, I
as
remember
well,
this. Yeah.
and that so that they fit within Bayonetta. It looks like something Bayonetta could conceivably wear, would conceivably wear in
Mhm.
her downtime. And then with the only hitch being that they put an undershirt under the Link tunic, and somebody from Nintendo of all places came in and be like, "That's not sexy enough. She would never wear that. Get rid of that."
Give
Still the
that man
best
a
to me.
raise.
To be a fly on
I
the wall of that
mean,
meeting.
they knew what they were buying. They knew what they were acquiring. So,
That's
but
funny.
yes, that does it. That does it for me.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like I've talked at length about a lot of the stuff I have actually played and watched over the break, so I don't want to rehash a bunch of it here. But I will say, more recently, like I started the weekly streams with my fiance, and we've been playing through the Dark Pictures anthology, House of Ashes. And that game is very hard to pay attention to on a stream. I have to say, like it has a lot of downtime in between, like kind of its sections where like important stuff are happening. So it always feels like it's coming out of nowhere when it wants you to either take control of a character's response or to hit a button real quick to like beat like a quick time event. So like, but it's kind of fun because like I'm so distracted that like I'm missing things that I probably normally would, and like I don't know yet what the consequences of those misses are, and that's always fun. I do think of in comparison to the first two, this story is the least interesting to me, but at the same time, I really like the dynamic that the sort of will they live or will they die situation is built around for this one, kind of more so than the first two. Like the first two, like it was kind of hard to tell what the actual danger was in any given moment. Like they were like chased by like pirates on like a rickety boat the first time. The second one, I don't know, they were like ghosts in like an old an old pilgrim town or something. But this one is like, no, there are monsters hunting soldiers. So like either the soldiers are going to be good soldiers or they're going to get got by the monsters. And like I like the idea that you messing with their relationships with each other, like it's a real messy like drama filled situation with the soldiers. Like two of the soldiers used to be married to each other. One of the ones who was married is in a sort of physical relationship with another one and stuff like that. But then not everyone has access to the same information, and like I'm having that, like even though I'm an outsider and I know that information, I'm trying to move them in certain directions. Like the main guy, for example, I want him to be a jackass because he just looked like one. Like I'm just typecasting him as a jackass. So I'm like, all right, you have that look, so I'm gonna make sure everyone is kind of annoyed by you. And then like the opposite for like the guy who is he's kind of like the hero, but like I'm trying to turn him into like more of like, oh, he's actually a softie at heart. Like, oh, he actually thinks about his actions and stuff rather than it's kind of gung ho American Army hoorah type stuff. So it's been fun. Like even though I do think it's probably the weakest story so far, I think it has the strongest cast of characters that I'm having a good time not interacting with. Manipulating is a better word, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, what made you choose, like, have you guys played the other ones? Like, what made you start on that one
We
instead of,
we
like, Until
actually
Dawn or
did play
Glory?
the first two together, weirdly enough.
Okay.
Like before I proposed to her, before we were planning to do a fundraiser or whatever, we'd actually played those on stream, funnily enough, as well. So
You
it just
proposed
felt
to her
right.
in Man of Medan.
Casey.
That's funny. But yeah, like we decided we just go back to that series as the first game.
Mhm.
But hopefully, I'm hoping it's kind of done by next week because I am a little tired of its slow burn. Like it's a very slow burn.
Mhm.
But outside of that, last night, like I mentioned, me, Elise, and Jess went back to Monster Hunter Rise. Like I know a bunch of folks went back to World after the Wild trailer, but like I mentioned to Marty just before we went live, the wire bug system is something that I cannot let go of at the moment. Like it is one of my favorite mechanics in video games, period, since its inception. And really, it's just a glorified anime ass grappling hook. And like we all know, grappling hooks are king.
Indeed,
and
as
you
we
just
know.
you just make a grappling hook that attaches to the sky and then can also swing your weapons around. Like that's just that's just
Go nuts.
genius. So yeah, I'm absolutely in love with it. And so we went back. I spent like a bunch of hours before that stream to make sure that I could that I wouldn't be fumbling too much. Like once we actually went back to it, because it's been I want to say like a full year, if not more, since I last booted it up. But like it honestly didn't take that long for me to get reacquainted with all like the shortcuts, like all of my preset gear and whatnot. Like I realized that I done a ton of like costume customization. Like I looked really good when I came back. I was like, oh, look at this cool ass outfit I'm in. So like I didn't have to change a bunch of shit up. So like yeah, I feel like, I've been feeling like ever since I stopped playing, I'd be like, man, I wish I could go back to Monster Hunter Rise. Now that I've gone back, I'm like, man, I wish I could keep playing Monster Hunter Rise. So if Wilds comes out and it feels like drastically different, I'm worried I might not take to it. Like if I can't zoom around the map or like have access to all these special versions of like my regular attacks rather than doing like the kind of more normal attack combos from like World, I don't know if I'll be into it, and that worries me a little bit.
They haven't said one way or another whether it's going to come back, right? It just
No,
wasn't featured in
yeah,
the
they did not
initial
show
trailer.
anything like it in the trailer. Like the Palamute riding, which was introduced in Rise, they did show a version of that. Like you ride
Yeah.
not a Palamute, but a creature that can spread its wings and glide. So like it's a more advanced version even of the Palamute stuff.
Yeah,
Essentially a Breath of the Wild glider, right?
sure.
Even though those games had like a glider, World had a glider
A
type thing too.
palosaur.
Palosaur.
There you go.
That's what I'm calling it.
I like it. I like it. And that's not coming out till next year, right? So that's
Yeah,
still
I don't believe so.
quite a
Yeah.
ways away. But yeah, you would have thought if it had the grappling hook system that just would have been featured in that opening trailer from the Game Awards at some point.
Yeah, like that, and yeah, that made me worried. But I don't know. I'm trying to convince myself that there'll be something, because this will be made in the RE engine, I imagine, and World was not. So like they
Yeah.
could not use World as a building block for the next big console one because that was on MT Framework. So
Yeah.
hopefully they'll be like, all right, this is kind of baked in here. We don't, and like it was fun, we liked it, so let's not change it, and let's now.
Yeah.
That's my hope. So I don't know. I mean, they could have left it out. Again, this is me wishful thinking. They could have left it out of the trailer because they didn't want you to focus on that. They didn't want you to think of Rise, because a lot of folks aren't like Rise sold a lot, but a lot of fans, like we saw, went back to World because they hold World in a higher regard because that was the big console one that probably got a lot of
Yeah.
people in. It does look better still. Like the graphical fidelity they had to sacrifice to fit it on the Switch is noticeable. Even though that game does look great and it runs great on the Switch, it's noticeable when you look at it compared to World.
Yeah.
So they might not be trying to remind people that this new one is gonna be like that Switch one,
Sure.
even though it might be like that Switch one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's just me hoping. I'm trying to think of stuff I've watched that I haven't talked about at length. Like I mentioned that I watched the Gran Turismo movie with my family, but that was on Firelink. And honestly, I think that's a good movie. It's a much better movie than I thought it would have been. Even though I have this thing where racing movies tend to just be good. Like at a base level, if you're on a scale of 1 to 10, every racing movie is at least a 7. That is if it is actually about racing. Like if it's a movie that is about racing and has cars or motorcycles or whatever, jets even, if it revolves around the sport of racing and then you have other like outside stuff in it, it's still at least a 7.
It's the Metroidvania of movie genres.
Yes, it kind of is. It kind of is.
Just baseline level of good.
Yeah, you can add anything you want. But romance, put in a racing movie.
Yeah, like exactly.
We need a horror racing movie. What is that like?
Wasn't that?
There's like Duel, where there's like a truck. In Maximum Overdrive, there's like a haunted truck chasing after people.
Is that racing if it's like just a car chase?
I mean, if you're running away from someone, is that racing?
I don't think that's
life?
racing. I don't think a car chase counts as racing.
By that metric, Christine counts.
Yeah, Christine, haunted car. What's going on? That's a race.
I gotta push back on this. I don't think
Casey and I are giving you like are like looking at each other like side eyeing Marty like.
Oh, King Dead with a great point. It Follows is a horror racing movie because that ghost is constantly walking towards you and you gotta outrun it. That's a great. I like that. Yeah.
I don't think a chase counts as a race. Like a race is two things trying to get to a location before the other. Like a chase is one thing trying to catch another thing. I feel like that's fundamentally different. Like you can't do like a sweet pass in a chase. Like it's just not a thing.
Trying to outrun another thing. A chase is a race with more personal stakes.
I don't think.
Except the endpoint. The endpoints are different for each case. Like a race,
like
there's a defined endpoint. The chase is just until one thing catches the other.
Yeah. What would be the equivalent of like a photo finish for a chase?
Crossing a border into a non-extradition country. Cops having to stop.
Okay. What?
Yeah,
I'm so confused. What were we talking about originally?
Chase race. That's a good name for a movie.
Gran Turismo.
We're talking about Gran Turismo.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Sorry. What was going on there?
But yeah, like I think I mentioned this again on Firelink, but like the story that they tell of this real life driver Hiatus who starts out as a Gran Turismo player, joins this weird marketing stunt from Nissan and Sony, and then becomes an actual race car driver is like honestly fascinating. Like his story is like shocking. Like if all the beats that are included are actually true, like I don't want to spoil the movie, so I won't. But again, I really it does a great job just selling how dangerous motorsports is. Like it doesn't treat it like a game, even though that's the whole premise of the movie. It's like, oh, I'm a video game player and I can do this thing that the pros do. They don't trivialize the sport in that way and say like, you go ahead and play 1,000 hours of this video game so that you can do what these motor professionals do. They're like, no, this is like a 1 in a million thing that this guy was able to pull off. That's what makes it actually amazing. And even though he was in the right place at the right time and had the skill set in order to make that transition, he still suffered kind of like the perils of what he was doing. Like the risk was so high and he got to see that firsthand. And they show that to you. Like they really make you feel like how freaking harrowing it was and how the fact that he loved it so much pushed him through that. Like I thought that movie was actually really good. Like much better than I would have ever imagined from like an adaptation of a franchise like that. Because I hate the Gran Turismo series, honestly. I think it's the most boring sim racer out there. And I think sim racers are kind of boring in general, but I had more fun with like Forza than I ever did with the old Gran Turismo.
Did you ever see the Need for Speed movie?
No, I haven't, and I need to.
Aaron Paul and Kid Cudi. It's pretty good. It has some chases though, so I don't know if you might.
Does it also have races? Like it's focused on the races, but then also
I think
has
it might
chases.
have
I think
I think those are chases. I'm just gonna say Need for Speed a lot of time. I think those are chases, at least part of the time.
It might marry the two. It might be two dudes having an illegal race and the cops getting
and they're chasing. Yeah, I mean that's what Need for Speed is, right? Yeah,
that's a race chase.
Yeah.
Even better, a race chase.
Yeah,
a race chase. There we go. We've coined a new genre. I'm curious about this, Casey. Do you think we should classify the Gran Turismo movie? Should we like should we lump it in with all the like video game adaptations? Because I see like it was in the same category as like Super Mario Bros. Movie, The Last of Us, and all the other they're making an Until Dawn movie for some reason. I don't know.
That seems
but
ill-advised.
we're making a movie out of a video game that was a pastiche of horror movie conventions.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind. Anyway, do you think Gran Turismo should be lumped in with those because it's technically not an adaptation of the video game?
Right.
Yeah. I was kind of looking at it as like, okay, we're kind of messing with the filing system here a little bit. Just because it is video game related doesn't mean it's an adaptation of a video game.
I think you're right. Yeah, it doesn't actually fit that definition in that word, especially since like this is literally a biopic. Like this is a real life person's story that just happens to involve this video game. It is not at all an adaptation of something that happened in the video game.
I put it in the same. It's like the Tetris movie with Taron Egerton.
Yeah.
Ungerton, whatever his name is.
It's
it's like that,
at least.
where it's ostensibly like a real story about this thing. Or even like The Wizard. Did you ever see the movie The Wizard in the 90s?
Yeah, but was that real?
Yeah.
Was that based on a real thing, or is that all made up?
It was not based on a real thing. No.
Okay, I thought that was fake.
Promotional tool to like reveal Mario 3 via the movie.
That's a good effort,
Yeah.
Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe I need to go back and watch it. Maybe that movie sucked.
It was probably bad. They had the Power Glove though.
That movie was probably bad. Now I'm thinking.
That movie was really bad, but as a kid, it was like, damn.
Yeah, as a kid, it's like, oh
film?
shit, it's a new Mario.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's all I have in terms of things to share, because everything else I've been watching and seeing is like, it feels ancient at this point. I did finish Scavenger's Reign, which that's a good ass show. God damn, that's a good ass show.
Hell yeah.
Like I honestly want to say, and I know I might be a little biased, that the wealth of like animation in the year 2023 kind of eclipsed everything else for me.
It was so good.
It was so good. Even the stuff that like I didn't
last
expect
few months
to
of
be
the
good.
year, it's just like holy moly, just loaded with stuff.
There've been so many like just straight up hits in that category, and I haven't even watched them all. Like I haven't even gotten to the Castlevania Nocturne series yet, and I know that's pretty good because the last one was great. But like the Blood Dragon remix was way better than I expected it to be. What else was I watching?
Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim came out. That was great. Blue Eyed Samurai, Pluto.
Pluto was great. Yeah.
And then Scavenger's Reign, which was that nominated for anything?
Fucking should be. No, I don't think I haven't seen. No, it kind of just got dumped on Max, and like no one except
Nimona was also last year too. Yeah, that was actually really good.
Yeah. Spider-Verse. Yeah, just
right. Spider-Verse. Goddamn.
Wind Rises.
Castlevania Nocturne.
Yeah, there was a lot of great stuff.
Amazing. Just an amazing year for animation. And I hope that like people are taking note of that, because it seemed just before all this stuff dropped, there was like all these like layoffs and like the consolidation of WB. Discovery was basically saying like, oh, we're going to fuse these two completely separate, really good anime houses together and possibly knock out a bunch of places. But I think the Warner Brothers, or was it Adult Swim teams or something, like their animation houses started unionizing, I want to say, or at least some of the higher level like management and producers started unionizing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that's going to translate to the actual like artists and stuff, but it's a start, maybe.
I also like how so many of the things we just mentioned have very different art styles to them. Like this has like kind of a French style almost, I would say. Like it looks like those like Mobius, that artist Mobius. It looks different than like traditional what you think of when you close your eyes and think of anime, or even like the sort of the boundary pushing stuff of like a Spider-Verse or a Ninja Turtles. That was another good one. Mutant Mayhem. That was a good one.
Oh crap, I forgot that even came out.
Yeah.
I need to check that out. Like, I'm glad you brought up the art style, because a lot of the time it honestly kind of reminded me of a more whimsical King of the Hill in terms of its art.
Damn it, Bobby, we gotta get off this goddamn planet.
I wasn't expecting that.
But like, yeah, like what that show does best is like this sort of National Geographic-esque visual language of like look at the flora, look at the fauna, look at the nature of this world. Like it has all these like kind of establishing shots of just weird ass creatures doing weird ass creature shit that like just captivates you in those moments. But then like it's telling you like, hey, look how strange this place is, and then later on something strange on the planet like drastically affects the situations that the actual characters are trying to deal with, to the point where like folks are either losing their minds, like betrayed each other. Like it's a fascinating series, and I thought this might have been like a one and done type series, but it seems like it's setting itself up for a second season.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been renewed for a second season, but definitely by the end of it, it is clear like, oh, the story's not done. Like, there's more to tell.
Because like I was hoping to get to like a satisfying conclusion, but like if this were to not continue at all, I don't think it feels clean enough of an ending. You know what I mean?
No, it wasn't one of those. Oh, this could be the end of a show,
like this
or
could
we
be the
keep
end, or we
going.
could get more. But I know it's more like we kind of need to see what else happens here.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it for me. We can get into the Xbox Dev Direct if you guys would like.
Yes.
Okay.
So Xbox showed off 5 new, or not new, but 5 games that are on their first party docket. Well, actually 4 games that are on first party docket, and then one that is a partnership with Square Enix. I guess we'll go down the list. What did they show first?
Avowed was first. I believe.
Avowed, yeah. So what are you guys' first impressions of their Avowed showcase?
I will say it looks very Obsidian, which means it's probably going to be vibrant and fun and do really innovative stuff, and it's going to be janky as heck. Like, that's my experience with Obsidian games, although I could still be stuck in New Vegas.
Was New Vegas made with the same creation engine as like Fallout 3 before it?
I thought so. I could be wrong, but I think so.
Yeah, I assumed New Vegas was built on like the bones of 3, even though
Right.
it was a different developer, obviously.
But then since like what was Outer Worlds built on? Like some proprietary thing? Or are they using like Unreal
That's
or
good.
something?
Yeah, that's a good question. I imagine it would be a different
'Cause
a different engine, because when that was in development, they weren't all under the same umbrella as Bethesda.
Right. And I don't remember, and I could be fully wrong, but I don't remember Outer Wilds getting a bunch of
Outer
grief about
Worlds?
bugs. Worlds. I'm sorry.
You're gonna
Outer
screw
Those
this
two
up
games came
several
out the
times
same
today.
year.
Don't
God
worry.
damn it, yeah.
They came out the same year.
I don't
We'll
remember
screw this
Outer
up.
Worlds getting like kind of dragged about bugs and like stuff like that. Like I didn't play that game, so I don't know. Like
Well, I mean,
Uh-huh.
there's bugs, and then there's also like it's just like a weird way that the game plays, where it's like, okay, this I would lament if it were any other developer, I would lament a certain lack of polish, but when it comes to Obsidian, that's just what I expect of them, because what they deliver is usually so meaty and enjoyable and just fun to play that I can overlook certain like rough edges, if you will. It doesn't necessarily have to be bugs. It can be things like just, you know, weird textures, or, just NPCs, who loop their dialogue for no particular reason. That's usually been my experience, at least. Although I will say, back in New Vegas, the bugs, I played it on 360, and the bugs absolutely destroyed me. So I'm not holding a grudge. I'm not holding a grudge at all. But it looks really gorgeous. I love it. I love I love the world, and I'm enjoying what I've seen so far of the gameplay. Although I do think it was curated a little bit, as to show the first person combat in the best light possible.
I think that is a recurring trend throughout that entire presentation.
Well, it's fair. It's only fair. I'm not
Curated
expecting
is a
them to
nice way
be
to say
like,
it.
that's our job to like
Yeah.
expose the bad stuff.
Yeah, it did have also, despite the fact that it's just not my type of game, some of the most incredible key art I've ever seen. Like that key art of like the skeleton with like sort of all the pastel flora and fauna growing out of it. Great.
Yeah, like that. I feel like that is a disservice to the actual game, because I don't think anything in the game is gonna feel as like cool and new as what that key art is sort of suggesting. Because like from the presentation itself, like I've made it no secret that like I am very much tired of the fantasy aesthetic, and nothing about that showcase made me feel like there was anything interesting about that world. It's just more fantasy BS as far as I can tell. Like none of the combat systems, none of the character interactions, nothing in terms of like the outfits or the settings. It all just looks the same. Like I would have a very hard time being able to tell apart a screenshot between Avowed and freaking Baldur's Gate 3 right now. Like they look exactly the same to me, unless you're like splitting hairs.
How dare! No, I'm kidding.
So like I gotta say, like as interested I was in the idea of like somebody else taking a stab at Skyrim, which I liked a lot. Like I really did like Skyrim gameplay wise. Avowed might be too similar for me to care about it. Because that trailer did kind of nothing for me, sadly.
Yeah, I feel like genre aesthetics like that. I'm kind of in the same boat, but I chalk it up to the hardcore fans of the genre will be able to spot 10,000 nitty-gritty differences between
Sure.
a Skyrim and an Avowed and a Baldur's Gate and a Pillars of Eternity and all that stuff. Path of Exile. I don't know what the difference between any of those are, so I'll just lump them all in there. You could say the same thing with the sci-fi genre, with the space genre, with anything like that.
Yeah,
with anime,
sure.
anime aesthetic. And if you're into that stuff, you'll be like, no, look at all these differences. But I'm not into that stuff, so I kind of agree with you there.
So yeah, maybe we'll see a little more. When they announced a date for this, right?
Back half of the year. They said fall, I think.
Fall, okay.
Fall
Yeah, the only game that got a date, I believe, was
Hellblade 2.
Hellblade 2 in May.
That got a date or got a month?
Date.
May
It was
21st.
May 21st. Okay. Speaking of which, that was the second game they showed, I believe. Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2. When we were watching the trailer, like we were a little distracted, so I did some extra reading. I believe in that trailer they said this is going to be like an 8-hour thing.
Yes.
$50 price point. That is not what I was expecting for this. Like I thought this was aimed at like maybe like a bigger sort of experience. But this is staying pretty close to what the first Hellblade was in terms of like its scope. And I'm kind of mixed on that idea. Like everything that they showed so far had not sold me on it being an evolution of the game as they kind of build it when they first revealed it. Like when they revealed it alongside the Xbox Series X launch, they made it seem like we're putting a ton of money and effort into like expanding this universe into like a big mega franchise for Xbox. But it seems like Ninja Theory was like, no, we're just gonna make a kind of direct sequel to that intimate experience that we did the first time, which I kind of like. Like that actually got me more excited to be like, oh, they're just gonna do what they want to do with this, as opposed to turning into a big thing, which the promo stuff has not been selling. But at the same time, they've still not sold me on what it is. Like if all I have to go on is it's gonna be like the last game, I guess that's enough. But if you've not played the last game, like I think a lot of people are gonna get the wrong idea about what this is, and that's gonna hurt it in the long run whenever it does release. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
Well, my first thought is like I'm kind of content with it being like a smaller, experience. I mean, we don't need everything. I think somebody made this comparison. I saw somebody make this comparison. I saw multiple people make this comparison. It doesn't need to be God of War. It doesn't need to go bigger with each successive iteration.
That's honestly what I thought they were going for in like their promo stuff up till this reveal.
Well, wasn't there? What was the trailer? They had a trailer where Senua and a bunch of other warriors are bringing down like some kind of a Goliath or something.
Yeah.
Remember, I wasn't just dreaming that trailer, right?
No, that happened.
So there is a part of me that's thinking it's like, okay, the game is going to be well, not shorter, but the same of comparable. I can't speak today. Comparable length to the original, but I'm thinking they're going to have bigger moments in the game. They're going to have bigger and bolder set pieces. I hate using that word because it feels like it's diminishing the experience. Like bigger moments in the game, like more memorable experiences in the game, and that's kind of what I'm hoping they're going to do. But I'm not pulling that from this trailer. I'll put it that way. I'm kind of pulling it from like my
Right.
the breadth of like what they've released so far, because I do think they kind of did a disservice to the game with that trailer, because I know the Hellblade series is all about like, we're going, you're going to become like you're living the life of this woman in the of this Celtic woman and her deep mental illnesses as
Mm-hmm.
she struggles to like parse the reality around her, and it's this very intimate and psychologically tormenting experience. And I'm like, okay, great. I still don't know what's happening in this trailer at all. I still don't know what we're doing. We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
go fight Vikings. Okay, cool. We're
No,
going to Iceland.
no, you're right. Yeah, like it's hard to quantify what that experience is, especially in the way they're showing it. Like there's a documentary attached to the first game where they go in depth about how they studied with like mental health professionals on psychosis. They spoke with people who experience psychosis to like get them to weigh in on like how's their representation of it for Senua like matched like the real world experience. And like they were getting positive feedback and whatnot from those consultants, and they reiterate all of that in this trailer to let us know like, oh, we're still doing everything we did in the first game to try to make this feel authentic. And that is great as additional information after you've had the experience, like after you know what it is you just saw and you realize, oh, so what I like, the stuff that she was seeing and the way she was hearing voices talk to her, whatever, like it's representative of this thing that I did not know a lot about. Them starting with that kind of assumes you already know what this is.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's a little rough as a sales pitch.
It's fair, yeah.
It's also the collective we people who talk about games, and we people who watch these fans who watch the directs and stuff like that. I feel like when you said earlier, like we just assumed it was kind of going to be like their answer to God of War. That was just an assumption we had, myself included. You would like when we watched these, because Casey, you and I have streamed these reveals, these trailers several times at several events, and I feel like that's what we've always said. Like, oh man, it's going to be the first Hellblade, but they're really going to bolster the combat, and they're going to take some cues from God of War.
Yeah.
They never said that.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
They haven't said anything about the game, because every time they show it, we're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, the only reference I have to what I'm doing in this game is what I played in the first game. And so I'm just like, it's going to be the first game, which I really enjoyed, and I didn't know I was going to enjoy until I played the game. And it's just going to be that, but it's probably going to be prettier. And that's just kind of what it's going to be. And then when they said, listen, this is a $50 game, it is 8 hours long, and it is not having a physical copy, which add that to the list. It's not getting a physical release. I feel like, part of it is on us for extrapolating, which I feel like we do with big games like this. That's kind of what happened with that's kind of what happened with like No Man's Sky.
Yeah,
kinda,
like when,
and again,
that and Cyberpunk and
part of that is the fault of the publishers and developers for it's like they created this storm, and then we got caught up in it, and we made it bigger and bigger, and then it's like, oh no, the storm got out of control. It's like, well, yeah, that's all of our faults right there.
I'm not sure that I necessarily, obviously we're all biased, and I'm not trying to absolve us, the collective we, of responsibility in that speculation storm, as you put it. But I will say a lot of the early trailers for Hellblade 2 is like they were kind of selling like this is going to be bigger and better. Like the very first trailer is just Senua looking directly into the camera and aggressively chanting at us about, and it's kind of selling. It's like, okay, this is going to be, this is coming off very aggressive and very like bold. And so, you kind of, I think they were kind of selling the impression that this was going to be, now that this has Xbox money behind it. So this is going to be bigger and this is going to be bolder. And, again, they never said that, but I do think they were kind of like
it was implied, right? And
yeah.
and it was, and similar to the No Man's Sky situation, when folks saw like that first trailer and heard the idea like we're simulating like a whole universe, it was kind of on them at that point to reshape that, to be like, oh yeah, we said those things, but what that means is this, right? Like they kind of just allowed the speculation to go on. And when you stay silent, when folks are saying like, "Oh, this is going to be their answer to God of War," like at some point you got to be like, "All right, well, no, this isn't going to be a 20, 30-hour experience." Like they didn't just now figure out that it was going to be 8 hours, but they're sharing it with us now that they have a release date that's going to be 8 hours. That's a choice. So like I fully accept that. Yes, they did not say all the stuff that we speculated, but there was a reason we speculated that stuff. Like this was shown off the same time as the launch of their new super powerful hardware. It was shown off what they labeled in-game engine, right? Yeah. So they're telling us like if you played the last game and this is the sequel and you see how much more we've put into this and that this is a centerpiece for this brand new console now that Microsoft owns the studio, it's very easy to jump to the conclusion that like, oh, Microsoft wants this to be big.
And also there's that whole like the killing of the giant thing being another trailer. So naturally I feel like it's a natural extrapolation of things. Okay, this is going to be like a thing that happens. We're going to kill big enemies in this game, even though that's not what's I have a feeling that's not what's the game is ultimately going to be about.
Yeah, and like my main thing has been, because I'm a big Ninja Theory fan. They are excellent combat artists in that they can design like very fluid, very fun combat mechanics. And the first Senua game has a very simple combat style, but it works. Like it feels a little like a slightly pared down For Honor almost. And I was very excited at them getting the chance to do more with that. So when they show what they show, and it's like a super fast shot of just a sword swinging or like a move to the side, they're not showing the full combat encounter. That shows me that they probably haven't added a lot to the combat. It's probably going to be very similar to maybe what it was before, as opposed to a much more expanded combat system. And why would you need to expand a combat system if there isn't a lot of stuff to actually have combat with, right? Like if it's just an 8-hour experience, if a lot of that is cinematic storytelling and mood setting and set pieces, like we said before, the actual like game part, like the gameplay part, I feel like is probably gonna be very similar to the first game, which there wasn't a lot of it in the first game. The first game was more of an experience than it was like a mechanic heavy video game, and that's a little disappointing because I think Ninja Theory is really good at mechanics.
You missed the old Ninja Theory.
Yeah. The Bleeding Edge Ninja Theory.
No one misses that Ninja Theory.
I'm sorry. Bleeding Edge has a character named Damon, who's one of the dopest designed video game characters I have ever seen in my life. He's a freaking graffiti samurai, and he wears a fitted with Oni horns on it.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Like, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I tried to look it up. It's like, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
That deserves so much more. And like, they have a lot of other characters that are also cool. Not as cool as Damon, but Damon, they should just give him his own game, please. Give Damon his own spin-off game, please. I beg you. But anything else on Senua's Saga? Or Hellblade 2, as it's being called?
No, I said this during the thing. I'm really excited for it because I liked Hellblade 1, not because of anything they've shown me.
Sure,
I think they've done a bad job of showing this game off for several years.
I'm just happy that I have a game that I can actually put on my calendar. Because
it's nice. It's nice to mark a date.
I have a date for this one. The other ones, no.
Yeah.
Okay. Visions of Mana. This is a Square Enix collaboration. Square Enix, as far as I can tell, does not seem to like Microsoft very much. Every single sort of tie-in they get seems like Phil Spencer is like making deals with devils and just pulling teeth left and right. But this seems... I don't know if this is going to be exclusive at all. I don't know if this is going to be on Game Pass at all. But at the very least, they're like, hey, we're going to feature you.
It's not exclusive.
It's not exclusive. Okay.
Not exclusive, no.
So yeah, again, like everything else on this list is exclusive, right?
Yes.
As far as I know.
So Square Enix allowed to kind of do what they want in the middle of Microsoft's playground. Visions of Mana, this is a new thing. What's your take on this? And I guess that relationship between Microsoft and Square Enix.
I mean, I'm a big Square Enix fan. I'm a big Final Fantasy fan. I'm a big Secret of Mana fan. It feels like Microsoft is getting their scraps by showing this off. It feels like PlayStation is like, in a month we're going to release Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and it's one of the most anticipated games of the year. And last summer we had Final Fantasy 16, and we also have Final Fantasy 14, and Microsoft is like, please, sir, may I have something? And they're like, here's Visions of Mana, a series that hasn't been very good for a while. And maybe this one will be cool.
Anything for a while.
But it just feels like, hey, if we give this a platform, can you give us 2020's Final Fantasy VII Remake maybe on our console? So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to this game. I thought its footage was pretty cool.
yeah, I thought its combat looked a little slow, but other than that, it does look like a fun kind of action JRPG type thing.
Yeah, and it's like Microsoft had, like, with Sega and Atlas, they've really been able to like get a foot in the door. Like Yakuza Like a Dragon at launch for the Series X was a new gen exclusive to that. Like, you could play the game on PS4, but not on PS5. It was only next gen on the Series X, which was very weird at launch. But then they've partnered. They've had all the Yakuza games on Game Pass. They had the partnership with Persona, where they brought Persona 5, 4, and 3 to Game Pass. They debuted Persona 3 Reload is coming to Game Pass.
Yeah, Tactica launched on Game
Tactica
Pass.
launched on it. They debuted Metaphor ReFantazio, I believe, at the Xbox showcase. Or maybe it was at the Keeleys.
Yeah, I think that was Game
But
Pass.
anyways, I feel like it might have a partnership with Xbox. So I feel like while they're like, that relationship feels mutually beneficial, I don't know. This thing with Square feels strange to me.
Agreed.
I just would have thought that the thing you show from Square here is, even if it's an older game, you're like, look, Final Fantasy 16 is coming to Xbox, or 7 Remake is coming to Xbox, or 14 is launching on Xbox.
Yeah, all these holes in the catalog that Square Enix, like there's nothing known on paper anywhere that Sony has exclusivity deals with any of these particular games. All we know
Or
is
if
that
they did, they were only for like a year. Like,
yeah, because like Square just doesn't release their stuff on the platform.
Yeah.
And and as far as we can tell, it seems like it's a Square decision.
yeah, I mean, it might be because the Xbox is such a nothing burger in Japan, and if Square is very
That's what I'm
Japanese centric,
thinking. Yeah.
that's why it took them so long to finally get games on PC, because they finally are taking PC somewhat seriously, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's more just that they're like putting they're extending a feeler into this more international market, because I mean, I think there was I think with the new president, with Takashi Kiryu stepping in, I think they're trying new things with the sorry. I think they're trying some new things with the Square Enix library, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is sort of like just a sort of like a tentative step forward, and it's not a franchise where there's going to be huge consequences, I think, if it fails by being on Xbox. If it doesn't do well on Xbox, I don't necessarily think anyone is expecting like for Visions of Mana to be a huge blockbuster. So I think if it turns out to not necessarily do very well on Xbox, I think that Square Enix has already planned for that. Whereas I think if they diversified and put Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on Xbox, and that ended up catastrophically not returning on that investment, that would be a big deal for the company, if that makes sense.
Yep, I agree with that.
So, speculation. I don't want to get too inside baseball, but that's just my read on the situation.
Also weird that they didn't say it was on Game Pass. Like, I just thought at the very least it'd be like, and it's coming to Game Pass day one, along with PlayStation and PC. And also, they didn't announce it for Switch, which to me is another clear sign that a Switch successor is coming, and it's coming to that, because Square puts fucking everything it can on Switch, because that's where it sells the most copies of every game. So, yeah.
Well, did you notice that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Go right ahead.
I was just going to say, did you notice that a lot of the showcase was just about like, hey, we know you don't know what the Mana series is. So here's like this like long history lesson about what the series is getting up to this point. And I'm like, I appreciate that, but frankly, the game should be able to stand on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of goes to show you, I think, the fact, like Marty said, this is their scraps. Square has zero confidence in it. They kind of don't care whether or not it's successful. So that is what they're willing to put front and center as a collaboration with Xbox, because everything else, for some reason, they think collaborating with the Xbox brand hurts them or would hurt them, because I can't imagine why, even if they don't sell as many of like say Rebirth or even Remake on the like a year or two after its release, if they don't sell as many as they want to on it, why it would be a bad thing to just have it available. And with the way Microsoft is moving, I'm pretty sure they've been like, hey, if we give you a bunch of money, will you put this on our platform? Will you let us put it on Game Pass? Blah, blah. They're probably just saying no because
there are rumors that it is coming to Xbox at some point. I've heard like some talks, but I don't know how valid they are. It's just speculation at this point.
Sure. It's just been such a weird relationship between these two companies that I can't stop like thinking about like what the hell happened. Like it feels almost personal rather than it has anything to do with business decisions. So I just want more insight.
I don't know. Business definitely feels colder to me, and this feels like a cold decision.
But
Summer.
yeah, sure. But as far as the game, it's fine. Game looks fine. It'll probably be okay. Ara History Untold. This is not in my wheelhouse at all. It's like a civilization builder type thing. This is another exclusive. Oxide Games I didn't know who Oxide Games was. I don't like. Is this a new studio or what do they do? What have they been doing?
I think they are relatively new. Yeah. Well, no. I know that there are people who work for it that used to work for other strategy game developers. I am drawing a blank as to what they are, though. That's the problem. You know what? That's what Google is for. Hold on.
Yeah, I mean,
Firaxis, that's what it is.
Oh, they're former Firaxis.
Yes.
Or have former
some
Firaxis,
of them anyway.
Yeah.
And some of the founders have worked on like Civilization and the Command and Conquer series. That I remember. I just couldn't remember. Like I knew there were some that used to work at a certain studio. But their only other previous game is Ashes of the Singularity.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Which I don't think I've ever seen anybody play.
One of my goals in 2024 is to stop pretending I care about things I don't care about. So I'm just going to refrain from this entire conversation.
The only thing I have to contribute is that this is the game I was talking about when Marty said earlier, just add a crafting system, because this is basically a strategy game, and they've added a crafting system.
Nice.
Good on you, Ara.
Well, I mean, yeah, I personally don't care about this franchise at all. Like, it has, like, I've never been enticed by, like, the 4X genre. But, like, when we were streaming this over on Second Wind, we had to, like, tell chat, because a lot of chat was, like, getting real ornery about it. Like, nobody cares about this. Nobody cares about this. A lot of people do. Like, a lot of people play this genre and, like, other genres like it. So, like, yeah, give it time. Give it space. For the devs to talk about what it is that is coming. The people who are into it were probably pulling their hair out in anticipation. I don't know.
Well, somebody did. One of the things they said that they're doing to set themselves apart from Civilization is that they are trying to explore different time periods. They didn't exactly specify what time periods that aren't part of like the established like civilizations in Civilization, and they're putting in different leaders, not necessarily just military leaders, which I thought was kind of cool. But again, they didn't necessarily give a whole lot of examples. I think Benjamin Franklin was one of the people that they brought up, and I'm like, I don't know if he's a good choice when you're talking about people who are not involved with a military campaign.
Also, everybody knows, all of us know who Ben Franklin is. He was forced upon us in our youth.
It's true.
They never even talked about how much he thugged.
We had to find that shit out from Assassin's Creed 3.
Thanks.
But yeah, so we'll get to our final game that was shown off here, and probably the biggest one
we're
of the
actually here to talk about.
Yeah, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Machine Games have revealed their Indiana Jones video game, and honestly had a pretty good showing. At least I think so. What do you guys think? Big Indiana Jones fans?
Yes.
I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan.
What is it about Indiana Jones that does it for you? Because I feel like it's a fun movie, but like I've not really cared about the character that much. Like
Me,
what does he do for you?
It is the perfect adventure movie. It
Okay.
has every element of, when I think of the word adventure, of going on an adventure. And it especially Raiders of the Lost Ark, is so perfectly plotted to where it feels like the blueprint of a modern video game. Like where it's like, here's the like every 25 minutes we go to an awesome new location. There's a different, not to use it pejoratively, set piece that feels different, like at its core, whether it's a fist fight in a bar that's burning down, or whether it's a car chase through Cairo, or whether it's spelunking in the bottom of creepy tombs with fucking bugs and traps and everything, or whether it's sneaking into a Nazi stronghold and that kind of thing. Like, it just feels, it's just so perfectly paced, has great side characters, villains you love to hate, buddies you root for, and Indiana Jones himself, between Harrison Ford, how he's written, and the just the aesthetic design of him with the hat and the whip, are all just like just a perfect little concoction to create genuinely just one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest movie franchises ever. Even though the last two have been kind of bummers.
Yeah, I've not seen the last two either.
You're fine.
Yeah, I haven't seen the last one, but
I said you're fine. You don't need.
Oh, okay.
well, yeah, it's also set at a very interesting time period as well, and I like that Indy, for all of his his heroics and his bravery and all that, he's not an invincible hero. He's not like some like muscle bound some image of perfection. Like, he stumbles, and
he's not Vin Diesel.
is
he gets his ass kicked in every single movie.
Exactly. Yes, he's not a perfect, he's kind of awkward. He's a teacher, and when confronted by his students, he crawls out the window. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good humor to it as well, and I enjoy the I think part of it is that it kind of caters to a certain sense of we believe you're smart enough to understand this. Like, Indy is explaining all these how the puzzle, the historical background for these. Of course, you, the viewer, don't know 100%. You're not an archaeologist. You don't know if what he's saying is actually based in real historical research or anything like that. But but the film addresses you as if you're smart enough to understand this. Like when Indy is talking about like biblical stories in The Last Crusade, or where the Ark supposedly comes from in Raiders of the Lost Ark, or even Indian mythology and a Hindu mythology in Temple of Doom. And it's he's sort of like explaining it in the sense of like the movie kind of believes you're smart enough to be able to follow along with that, which I always appreciate.
Okay, so translating that perfect adventure archetype into a video game does seem like a natural thing to do, which is probably why Tomb Raider did it and why Uncharted did it right afterwards.
Yeah.
To be fair, Indy did it first. Like, there have been a ton
of
sure.
games.
I mean, it's funny because it's an Ouroboros, right? It's like without Indiana Jones, a thing like Tomb Raider wouldn't exist.
Right.
Without Tomb Raider, a thing like Uncharted wouldn't exist. Without Uncharted, a thing like the Tomb Raider reboot wouldn't exist. And probably without the success of those games, this modern Indiana Jones wouldn't exist. So
yeah, and
without the Uncharted film starring Tom Holland, Indiana Jones wouldn't exist.
Like, they were so offended by that film. It was like, you know what? We're
going
to make a video game that's better than your video game, maybe. But yeah, like that. So yeah, they are turning Indy into a proper video game, like with a big. But like this feels like a big one, right? Like we're. I don't think we've misconstrued the message here that they're trying to tell us this is a kind of a AAA experience. They've got Harrison Ford's likeness. They've got Troy Baker doing a amazing facsimile of this man's voice.
I knew that was him. You didn't need to tell me. I knew that was Troy Baker. I know that Texan.
Troy Baker's he's a treasure. But yeah, so like, but yeah, like I was actually very impressed with what they showed in terms of like gameplay. Like, it reminded me so much of Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay, which was one of the most involved first-person games I played at the time, and like I haven't really played that many that feel as involved since. But like, it had mechanics for gunplay, mechanics for like fist fighting, like just weird context specific interactions with like the world and environment that just made it feel like it felt third person even though you were in first person. And like it's like Machine Games was born from former Starbreeze folks, so like it makes a lot of sense that that sort of thing would carry over because it looked a lot like that in what they showed. So like I was very impressed by the look and by the look. I can't say the feel because I've not played it, but it looks very similar to like what I remember from Chronicles of Riddick.
I mean, it also
Yeah.
helps that Machine Games makes the made the last 2 Wolfenstein games.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
like you
Wolfenstein
want a
2
game that's
especially
set.
is incredible.
You want an historical adventure in which you punch Nazis?
Yeah.
Well, who do you go to for that?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and there was the scuttlebutt around first person versus third person. I was saying I prefer third person games to first person games, but seeing that footage and again, loving Wolfenstein 2, I'm like, I trust them. I absolutely trust them. I think this will be a banker. I also don't
Yeah.
think it'll release this year, personally. I think it'll get delayed. But
I don't. It doesn't need to be third person, I think, because I don't want there to be so many comparisons to Uncharted and Tomb Raider. Like, I know it's
yeah.
going to happen, but I really feel like, you know, Indy's spiritual children, Lara and Nate, have this. They've already got that. They've already got
Yeah.
the third person thing. We
Mhm.
don't need another third person, uh, you know, archaeology adventure game.
Archaeology
Person.
up.
Yes,
And
archaeology.
and first person could lend itself better, in my opinion, to some real interesting puzzle solving that would come with these tombs, which I hope almost tombs can start to feel almost like adventure games. Speaking of some of those old ones, DS ones earlier, but it could be cool. Yeah, really looking forward to it. Stuff they showed was really cool. Trailer was really cool. I watched it again after the reveal, and it's just like really well cut. There's the part where there's like a montage of like punches in a row that are to the music, to the Indiana Jones theme song. Just good stuff.
Yeah, just well done overall. Like great first showing for this. The trick, which has been a bane in Microsoft's side for a while now, is getting to the finish line and keeping that momentum up there. Because like the longer this takes, the more funky the later showings get. Like the win tends to get taken out of the sales before these projects come out. Like the fact that they didn't have like a big stealth drop alongside this like they did the last one. Like Hi-Fi Rush kind of stole the show. I can't even remember what else was shown in the last year's direct.
Redfall.
So yeah, like
that's not the steal from.
no, it's good that something like a really good game release could basically hide, because I'm sure every single time I saw Redfall, I was like, this does not look good. I don't know what anybody else was looking at or expecting, but every time they showed off that game, I was like, what is this? This looks bad. So the fact that I couldn't remember that it was even a part of the show after Hi-Fi Rush was dropped and I started playing that is a good thing.
It also helps that you, I think, it's very easily after that showcase to know exactly what Indiana Jones is going to be, and its scope is relatively contained. Whereas throughout Redfall, it was like, what? So what is this all multiplayer? Is this live service? What's going on here?
Right.
Or even throughout Starfield, it was like, this is the largest game. It is all the planets you can go to. Or even Hellblade, where we're like, what are we doing in this game? Like, it's just very... It just makes sense. Like, I saw that and I was like, hey, I know what kind of a game this is going to be. Great.
Yeah, which makes it weird that this one only has like kind of a vague thing versus like we're going to hit this date. It seems like this one is coming along the best of everything they showed. Well, aside from Aura, which again, like I'm just not really hyped for.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just the easiest to sell in like a contained package of like, here's a montage of cool shit you'll be doing.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Knows what that is. So.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that does it, unless you guys have anything else to add in terms of the conference overall or any games in particular that were shown.
No, I liked the in studio stuff. I liked the presentation of it, even if it was a game I didn't particularly care about. I really liked hearing the devs talk, and not in like a dry, boring way. Like I thought each section had a nice pace to it, and as a showcase, if this is kind of the format Microsoft's going to do going forward, I think it's really cool. It gets me excited when they announce it. It feels different than a Nintendo Direct, but still, I anticipate them. So cool stuff.
Is it just me?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, is it just me, or have shows, these game reveal shows, is it just me or have they become more? It's become less of like like, oh, show up to the Xbox Developer Direct, you never know what might be there, and it ends with a whole bunch of people disappointed because game X or game Y wasn't there, and I feel like the I've been hoping it evolves in this fashion. I think I actually wrote an article for the place that we all used to write for. I think I wrote an article there once where I was just like, can we do this more? Just have more shows where it's like, okay, here's a list of everything that's going to be in the show, and the people who are waiting for game X or Y is like, great, we don't have to show up because
Where's GTA? Yeah.
like, where's GTA 6? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And yeah, so now that that's I'm happy that this is, if this is the way, because we got a surprise reveal with Visions of Mana, but it wasn't anything that would that I think people would have been disappointed that they missed if they didn't show, if they
Sure.
didn't watch the
Yeah.
show live.
Yeah, I thought them
So
saying the 4 games they were going to show off beforehand was smart. And one of them being Indiana Jones was like, oh shit, I definitely want to tune
yeah,
into this because that's the
Mhm.
one that was like a big question mark beforehand.
and
So
and that
Same with
wasn't just like,
Hellblade. Yeah.
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 And that wasn't just like a short trailer at the very end of the show. They're like, no, we're going to give you a proper gameplay showcase. It's like,
Yeah.
fine. I feel really happy that the show was what it was advertised to be. And
Exactly.
it sounds stupid to have to celebrate that, but in this
Mhm.
industry, I feel like this is an evolution that I have long desired.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt like more transparency, which is cool.
Yeah. Like generally speaking, I am a fan of devs talking about their work, but
Mhm.
I'm a little bit critical of when it's like an announced showcase and they don't have enough of the game that they're talking about to show. So like in the case of like Indiana Jones, there was a good balance. In the case of Senua, I felt like there wasn't enough of the actual game. Like we didn't know that much about what that game was versus what they were telling us it was, and that's what leads, I think, to a little of the discomfort and confusion with that sort of thing. But generally speaking, yeah, I agree, Rachel. Like I like this sort of style. I also like when it's just trailers though. Like I'll be honest. Like I'm
You
okay
like
with
being
that too.
surprised.
But on that note, I guess we'll wrap things up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the literal first Sigma show of 2024. Like, it's been that long, yeah. Rachel, where can folks find you? What do you have coming up that they can check out?
I have a couple of fun game reviews coming out, so you can find me at GamesBeat or venturebeat.com/games, as the case may be. So keep an eye there. That's my professional writing, and in my personal life, in my personal writing, I am happy to reveal, and I'm sure everyone was absolutely waiting for this, but Stay Golden Sunday, my weekly Golden Girls column, is back. It's back from hiatus after a very long time, and also Masonry Monday also coming back. And if y'all want to see my face for some reason, I have started making I think I told you all this last time. I am making a daily gaming news show on TikTok. And my TikTok username is at Grace of Athena, but I have a link tree, which is just, linktree/Rachel Kaiser. So if you want to find any of my stuff, you can go there. It's in the bios of all of my social media sites. So if you need to find me on any other site, just go to the sites you already know me from. So Twitter, I think it's even on my Twitch, but if it's not, I'll add it.
Sweet. Marty, anything to plug for you? Where can folks find you?
Yeah, all the normal second win stuff. I'll be streaming tomorrow, Windbreaker at noon on all the regular streams all week. We'll have a bunch of bite sizes that are going to start rolling out soon. Casey's first of the year on Turnip Boy last week was fantastic. So if you like that and you like the other ones that we did late last year, stay tuned for that because we have about half a dozen in the works that'll be rolling out the next couple weeks.
Damn,
And then you can also, yeah, we got a lot of them. Yeah, all from different folks too. And then, yeah, you can follow me on Twitch at McBiggity, the name down here. I do personal streams. Just wrapped up Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I don't know what I'm gonna be playing some other stuff before I do the final piece of the Yuffie Remake DLC. So tune in for that.
Nice. As for me, you can find me at Sigma Gears 9 all over the internet. Coming up later today over on the Open Party Twitch channel, Super Smash Sunday returns. That's also been on like a 4-week hiatus because, holidays, busyness,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But we'll be back playing Smash the way you know and love. No items, 1v1s, all that jazz. Outside of that, like I mentioned earlier, my fiance and I have started doing our wedding streams called Our Big Fat Geek Wedding. We're doing a fundraiser to help us, recoup some cost of all the saving and scrimping that we got to do to get this wedding paid for by 2025. So very much appreciative of all the folks who've been coming through, hanging out, and watching and donating. It's going to a great cause, which is making my son and I and my fiance dress up in weird costumes for our engagement photos so far. They've gotten my son, who's going to be dressed as Yoshi, myself, who now has to dress as Wario. It was decided, they voted on either Wario or Peach, and it tied. So I had level 9 Smash characters fight it out in like a best of 3, and Wario demolished Peach. I had nothing to do with it. So we all had to accept the results. But it has been decided I'll be dressed as Wario. So the next goal we hit, I believe, is 4,000. The next goal we need to hit is 4,000 for Kia to dress as Bowser. That's the top goal right now. The second most wanted goal is to dress as the Game Awards kid. So we'll see what they vote for once they hit that goal. But outside of that, like Marty said, Second Wind stuff is still ongoing. We appreciate all the support over there as well. I'll be back for hitting whatever on Monday and all the other stuff going on throughout the week as well. It's been fun. Glad to be back. I should be back here again next week as well. So make sure you stay tuned. Share this with your friends. That's going to do it for episode 127. See you guys in the future. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everyone.